In this video, I'm going to be talking about political shit. Mainly, things that I think should be, tax covered, basically. Like the way we have roads right now, most roads are paid for by tax money, and that money is used to build roads. Obviously, it could be more efficient in how it's used. Our tax money is not used the most efficiently at the moment, and we could certainly increase the efficiency of it by instituting programs that would do that. I guess you probably need an economist to do that, because I don't have any specific ideas as to how you would increase the efficiency of the tax system. But, so, I think there are some things that today would be considered essential services that should be just in your taxes. And there's definitely some examples of why this might not be the best idea, but there's also examples of why it would be a really good idea. One is that, like, right now, if the government can come in and prevent some organization from having a monopoly over something so that people can afford something more easily, then that's a good thing, in my opinion. I don't think that companies should hold monopolies over things. That's one reason why I kind of disagree with certain kinds of copyright. Like, I mean, obviously, you should be able to copyright your work, but to a certain extent, it's like if I were an artist and I drew a picture or painted a picture, and was able to make money selling that picture, and then that picture got really popular and spread around on the internet by being copied, I wouldn't really care that much. In fact, I don't really care much for the original copy of a picture. When I make a drawing, I might spend 3 or 4 hours or more on it. Often I just, once I have it scanned or I've taken a picture of it that captures all the detail, I don't care about the original piece at all. I mean, it could be destroyed for all I care. I don't care, because I still have it somewhere else. Now, obviously, artists don't get a whole lot of money generally. They don't get a ton of money for painting. And so I can see why there's copyright laws, but some things like an essential medicine, like if you discover a medicine that cures cancer, you should not be able to put a patent or a copyright on it that allows you to have a monopoly over selling it. But maybe you should be able to patent the process of making it so that people have to pay you some money when they make it. That sounds reasonable, as patents go. But so anyway, what I really wanted to talk about is how I'm in favor of universal healthcare. I think that healthcare should be something that you pay taxes and you get the healthcare. Maybe you pay a copay when you get there, or maybe like for example, at the moment if you go to the hospital, you'll get a hospital bill, which is separate from the surgeon's bill and the anesthesiologist's bill, if you have that, depending on what you're going for. But if you have a surgery or something like that, the most expensive part will probably be the hospital bill or certain kinds of examinations, and things like that should be covered by the insurance. And more affordable things, which are still expensive, should be covered by the people, if they can. Obviously, if they can, then it should be covered by their taxes, because it shouldn't just be like, oh, well, we'll just let you die because you can't afford to get this medical care that you need, or we'll just let you suffer because you can't afford to get the medical care you need. That's ridiculous. It should be, people should be saved regardless of whether there's enough money to save them, because the facilities are there at the disposal. And surely someone is willing to shell out some money somewhere to save someone. If not, then there's a serious lack of empathy in people with money. But that might just be the case. So I think some other services like water and electricity should also be like the universal healthcare idea, where, and possibly also internet connection. I guess you really don't need a cell phone these days, although it's becoming more and more necessary to have a cell phone. But certain things like, I could get by without the internet, but it would hinder me a lot in things that I can do. I would be limited a lot. Like, basically, I wouldn't be able to perform functions as quickly or as efficiently as anyone else around me, which would mean that, in a working environment, I would not be very useful. So, things like internet are really important for that reason, but some people don't want internet. at the moment in the United States, I'm pretty sure that the number of people that don't have internet is less than the number of people that do. I could be wrong about that. When it comes, what I really mean is people who have access to internet, whether they actually have the internet at their house, they have internet connection, or if they go to, some place where they get internet service and use it. There should at least be, maybe a public option, a public Wi-Fi or something like that. But, then there's other things that are considered about that. I mean, like, it's not very useful if your public option is so slow that you can't even use it for, the kinds of things that are necessary. And if you have a public option, it's probably going to be the cheapest services available. So public Wi-Fi, would be easy to hack. It would be ridden with, security issues, basically. Riddled with security issues, I mean. And so it might make more sense to just let people choose their own internet and then take the amount of taxes out of their income based on what quality of internet that they're getting, so that, you're getting, like with the healthcare, you're paying more for certain different plans. Like with Obamacare, although I don't think Obamacare is really an ideal healthcare plan. It's really just forcing you to buy private insurance and making a public option, which still, they have pretty much, to an extent, the insurance companies can have a monopoly in many situations. There are other situations that are pretty bad where like pharmacies often have monopolies over things. That's why they heavily oppose, like the recreational legalization or the medical legalization of marijuana, because so many of their drugs would no longer be taken in such high quantities. They wouldn't be sold as much. Things like antidepressants and, drugs that are used to control nausea and to help people get to sleep will not be used as much, because there's another thing that's probably safer, and they don't want that. But of course, there's other situations where it's not malicious, it's just the result of how things are, like with water. The water and electric companies generally have a monopoly because you can't choose to get your water from somewhere else. The pipes that go into your house are connected to that water company, and you can get water from them or not. That's generally how it is with the electricity too. Making the government do something about this, you'd want to start by making it to where they're not charging people unreasonable rates, that they're only charging people rates that are proportionate to the amount of power that they're using and, are enough for them to make a decent profit, but not to the point where they're just like being greedy and charging more than is necessary. And obviously with some places like where the water is not clean, where the tap water is not clean, that should not be, you shouldn't force people to pay for tap water that's not clean. But yeah, if you were going to do something like that and you had something like publicly instituted, tax-funded running water, you'd also have to make sure that people weren't just like, oh, well, I don't have to pay for this as much as we do in the current system right now, so, I'll just waste water. You don't want that. You want it to be designed, you want incentives for people to save the water. You should make it expensive if they waste the water, basically. But that would make sense because it should be based on how much water they're using. But they could theoretically, like, in places where the water is not clean, they could send out free, well, obviously it wouldn't be free, the government would have to pay for it with taxes, which would be paid for by us. But you could send water purification kits that can get things out of water, although in some places, like, I'm pretty sure that mercury and lead and things like that are pretty hard to get out of the water. You can't just put it through a couple of filters and it's not in there anymore. You might have to, like, do chemistry on it or something, so that might not be feasible in certain situations. But for the most part, like, the majority of people use electricity, as far as I can tell, at least where we live. And it would just make sense for it to be paid for by taxes. It would make more sense because, for example, if someone can't pay their electric bill, that means that they're not going to have electricity for a month, which is probably going to hinder their ability to make money, which, it basically unleashes a paradox where the person is just going to be perpetually further in debt, or maybe eventually will have to declare bankruptcy or something. And if people, people pay their taxes every year, that way, if you don't pay your taxes, I guess that would be more dangerous, because then people would not have water, and that's a really important thing. If it's like, oh, you didn't pay your taxes, so we're cutting off your water. But it happens already when people can't afford to pay their bills. And oftentimes people don't have trouble paying their bills. And me being someone who, I'm cool with socialism in a certain extent. Socialism in that you're designing the government for the people. I think that the people that can easily afford to get by each month, buying extra things, having plenty of discretionary income, I think that's the right word, disposable income that they don't need to pay for bills and stuff like that. They can use it to buy extra junk food that they really don't need, or a new TV or whatever. They should be taxed in such a way that they still have their income. They still have a decent amount of income that they're still able to get by without having to struggle. And they're still able to have plenty of discretionary income, but they're making it toward the people that don't even have any discretionary income because they can't afford to pay their bills as it is, can, get by on their bills. Now, you'd have to add some nuance to this, because there are definitely some people who are going to try to mooch off a system like this. And although it's going to be in the minority, you still don't want your system to become less and less effective and efficient because of this. So there'd have to be systems in place to make sure that people weren't abusing this. People weren't just taking huge quantities of power from their electric bill, like if they're paying a flat tax rate or something. But really, I think even if it is in taxes, your electric bill should still be based on how much electricity you're using. Like, how much you pay in taxes towards that should be based on your consumption. Because it doesn't make sense for someone who uses $20,000 worth of electricity. I don't know how much time it takes to use that much electricity, but for a given amount of time, to have to pay the same amount as someone who uses $100,000 worth of electricity in the same amount of time. Because that's not fair. But so yeah, there's a lot of nuance that's involved in this, and there's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't be ideal and reasons why it would be ideal, and that's why you have to put systems up in place so that you could institute something like this successfully without it just failing or being ineffective, or having so many people opposed to it that it doesn't even get instituted properly, which is kind of what happened with Obamacare, although Obamacare wasn't the ideal universal health care plan to begin with. But so yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about.